Today on Running to Him.
A sower went out to sow. From that point on, other forces take charge, and it is out of his hands. Today we will read Mark chapters 3 and 4 and concentrate on chapter 4, verses 3 through 9. Mark 4, 3 through 9 says, "Listen to this. Behold, the sower went out to sow, and as he was sowing, some seed fell beside the road, and birds came along and ate it up. Other seed fell on rocky ground, where it did not have much soil, and immediately sprang up because it had no depth of soil. And after the sun had risen, it was scorched, and because it had no root, it withered away. Other seed fell among the thorns, and the thorns came up and choked it, and it yielded no crop. Other seeds fell on the good soil, and they grew up and increased, and they yielded a crop that produced 30, 60, and 100-fold. And as he was saying, he who has ears to hear, let him hear." Now, one of my favorite parables is the parable of the sower. It answers so many questions that we might have about why some people accept Christ and then only drop out, and others start slowly, and yet they multiply themselves hundreds of times. This parable is a wonder. Now, I've never quoted anything from Clement of Rome. He lived in 35 through 99 AD. And that's not because he didn't have something good to say, but I've never found something to use in devotion like this. But when he wrote on the parable of the sower is an example of how we can use legends and stories to illustrate a point and not be off track in our walk with Christ. What he writes will stretch us, but look at how he uses legend to make people understand the resurrection and God's working with mankind. He writes, "Think of the various ways, dear friends, by which the Master points us toward the coming resurrection, by which the Lord Jesus Christ was made the first fruit when he raised him from the dead. Let us observe, dear friends, how something like a resurrection is so often anticipated in the course of nature. Day and night, for example. The night falls asleep and the day arises. Day departs and the night returns. Or considering the planting of crops, and how and in what manner does the sowing take place? The sower goes forth and casts into the earth each of the seeds. They fall into the dry and bare ground and decay. Then out of their decay, the majesty of God's providence raises them up, and from being one seed, they grow up and bring forth many, many fruit. Even more dramatically, recall the remarkable wonder which has been reported in the eastern regions of the vicinity of Arabia, of a bird named phoenix. This bird is said to be a unique species, living perhaps 500 years, and when the time of its dissolution and death arrives, it makes for itself a coffin-like nest of frankincense and myrrh and other spices, into which, in time being completed, it enters and dies. But as the flesh decays, a certain worm is born, which is nourished by the juices of the dead bird and eventually grows wings. Then, when it has grown strong, it takes up that coffin-like nest containing the bones of its parent and carries them away, makes its way from the country of Arabia to Egypt, to the city of Heliopolis. There, in broad daylight, in the sight of all, it flies into the altar of the sun and deposits them there, and then sets out on its return, which the priests who examine the records thinks occurs at the end of the 500th year. With all of these indications in nature, why should it surprise us that the Creator of the universe might bring about the resurrection of those who have served him with holiness in the assurance of a good faith, seeing that he shows even us by a bird the magnificence of his promise?" That's in 1 Clement chapter 24 through chapter 26. Now, we might disagree about using myths to bring a point home, but Clement did not say the myth was true. He just showed it to be an illustration of how it could work. If we are to be the seed that brings many to Christ, we must die and then be recreated.
Thank you for listening. We pray that today's devotion was meaningful to you. We would love to hear from you. You can use either Facebook or YouTube to like, subscribe, share, and tell others about us. If you would like to contact us, you can reach me at phineasjacobus@runningtohim.net.